Morning fog wrapped Seattle's downtown core like a shroud. Nina Torres stood outside Blackwood Enterprises, 45 floors of black glass, cutting into the gray November sky. Her breath misted in the cold air. 3 years of night school, mountains of debt, and rejection letters that could wallpaper her apartment had led her here. To this moment, to him. Julian Blackwood. The man who built empires on 3 continents. The man they called untouchable. The lobby gleamed with marble and crystal chandeliers. Everything perfect. Everything cold. A silver-haired woman approached with kind eyes that didn't match the sterile surroundings. Nina Torres. "I'm Grace Murphy, Executive Secretary, welcome." The elevator climbed. 43 floors up, Nina stepped into a world suspended between earth and sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Seattle like a painting. The Space Needle pierced the distance. Puget Sound stretched gray and endless. "This is your desk," Grace said, gesturing to sleek furniture near frosted glass doors. "Mr. Blackwood arrives at 7:30. Leaves around 9 at night, sometimes later. Your job is to make his day run without interruption." Grace's voice dropped lower. "There's something you need to know. Mr. Blackwood doesn't shake hands. He doesn't accept any physical contact. It's not arrogance. It's his boundary. You must respect it." Nina nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good." Grace's eyes held sadness. "He'll be here in 10 minutes. Alone, Nina arranged her notebook and pens. Through the frosted glass, she could see only shadows and shapes. Then she heard him. Footsteps. Precise. Controlled. Julian Blackwood rounded the corner with a briefcase and phone. Taller than she'd imagined. Charcoal suit fitted perfectly to lean muscle. Dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. Sharp features that belonged on magazine covers, but his eyes stopped her breath. Dark blue, almost gray. They held an ocean of distance, vast and lonely. He glanced at her. One heartbeat. "You're the new assistant." "Yes, sir." "Nina Torres. Grace will brief you on protocols. I have a conference call in 5 minutes." He disappeared through the frosted doors. No hostility. No warmth. Like standing before a beautiful statue made of stone. The morning blurred with tasks. Coffee at exactly 8 o'clock, temperature between 145 and 150 degrees. Documents on specific paper stock. Visitors announced precisely 5 minutes early. He lives by systems, Grace explained. After what happened, it became the only way he could function. Anna looked up from her notes. After what happened? Grace hesitated, glancing toward Julian's office. 10 years ago, Julian was engaged to Catherine Reed, a photographer, full of life. They were planning a destination wedding in Bali. The older woman's voice dropped. 3 weeks before the wedding, Catherine was on assignment at one of Julian's hotels in Bangkok. There was a fire. Kitchen accident. It spread fast. 32 people died that night. Catherine was one of them. Nina's chest tightened. The world outside blurred. Julian was in Seattle when it happened, Grace continued. He flew there immediately. Too late. The investigation cleared the hotel. Contractor's error on the fire suppression system. But Julian blamed himself anyway. He rebuilt that hotel with every safety feature imaginable, donated millions to fire safety research. But he never rebuilt himself. That's when the boundary started, Nina said softly. Grace nodded. He stopped letting people close. Physically, emotionally, everything became too much risk. And over time, everyone forgot that beneath all that control used to be a man who laughed easily and loved without reservation. Late afternoon, Nina brought contracts for Julian's signature. She knocked softly. The Singapore acquisition, she said, placing the folder on his desk. Thank you. His eyes never left the screen. Nina turned to leave but paused. A photograph sat on his desk corner in a silver frame. A younger Julian, face bright with joy, arm around a woman with auburn hair and sparkling green eyes. Beach sunset painting gold and pink behind them. Is there something else? Julian's voice cut through her thoughts. Nina startled. No, sir. I apologize. But something had settled in her heart. Not pity, understanding. She knew what it meant to build walls around pain. That evening, Nina was the last to leave besides Julian. Through the glass, she could see him still at his desk, face illuminated by blue computer glow. He looked solitary in a way that went beyond alone. He looked like a man who'd forgotten what connection felt like. Before leaving, Nina did something spontaneous. She took a sticky note and wrote 3 words in neat handwriting. Tomorrow's possibility. She placed it on his morning briefing documents, then gathered her things. As the elevator doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of Julian's silhouette against the windows. A figure suspended between earth and sky, holding control like it was the only thing keeping him from falling. Somewhere between the 43rd floor and street level, Nina made a quiet decision. She wouldn't try to fix Julian Blackwood or force her way through his walls. But maybe, in small and gentle ways, she could remind him that the world still held kindness, that safety could exist without total isolation, that healing, though slow and uncertain, was still possible. Because sometimes the greatest courage isn't in building walls. It's in allowing someone to sit beside you while those walls slowly, carefully begin to come down. December rain streaked the windows, turning Seattle into blurred lights and shadows. Nina arrived before dawn each morning, finding peace in those quiet hours when the world still slept. She started leaving notes for Julian. Simple thoughts on sticky paper, placed where he'd find them. This gray morning reminded me. Why we build things that reach upward. Someone once said excellence is not a destination but a habit. You embody that. She never signed them. Never expected acknowledgement. But the notes disappeared each day, and sometimes she'd catch Julian pausing. Fingers resting where a note had been, expression distant. Grace watched with knowing eyes. You have a kind heart, Nina. That's rare in places like this. Everyone deserves to be seen, Nina replied. Really seen. Not just what they do, but who they are underneath. Julian hasn't let anyone see that part of himself in a very long time, Grace said quietly. After Catherine died, it was like watching someone disappear while still standing right in front of you. He poured everything into work, into control, because grief is so wild and unpredictable. Nina looked toward the rain-streaked windows. Do you think people can really heal from something like that? Or do they just learn to live with the wound? I think healing looks different for everyone, Grace said thoughtfully. Sometimes it's not about the wound closing completely. It's about learning to carry it without letting it define every step you take. The shift came on a Tuesday evening when everything went wrong at once. Julian's office door opened abruptly. He emerged with his phone pressed to his ear, tension carved into every line of his body. I don't care what the contractors are saying. The foundation specs were clear. If they cut corners on the reinforcement, the entire structure is compromised. His voice was steel. No, absolutely not. We shut down construction immediately. I want a full engineering review before another beam goes up. He ended the call and stood motionless at the windows. Nina hesitated. Is there anything I can do to help? Julian turned. For the first time since she'd started working for him, she saw beyond the control, frustration, exhaustion, and beneath it all, old fear flickering like a dying flame. The Portland Hotel project, he said, voice tight. The construction company tried to use substandard materials in the foundation. If I hadn't caught it during the review... He stopped, jaw clenching. If that building had gone up and something happened, if people had died because I didn't check thoroughly enough... His hands formed fists at his sides. Nina stepped closer. Not too close. Respecting the boundary. But you did catch it. You stopped it. That's what matters, is it? His voice cracked slightly. Catherine died because someone cut corners. Because someone decided profit mattered more than safety. I swore I'd never let that happen again. Never. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the glass. You can't control everything, Nina said softly. You can't prevent every possible disaster. That's not being alive. That's being paralyzed by fear. Julian's eyes snapped to hers, dark and burning. You don't understand? Then help me understand. Silence stretched between them. The city lights below wavered through rain. I was supposed to be there, Julian said finally. In Bangkok. At that charity event, but I stayed in Seattle for a board meeting. A meeting that could have waited. Catherine called me that afternoon. Said she wished I was there. Said she missed me. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. 3 hours later, she was gone. Nina felt her heart crack. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? If I'd been there, maybe I would have noticed something. Maybe I could have gotten her out. Maybe you would have died too, Nina interrupted. And then there would be no one to ensure buildings are safe. No one to donate millions to fire safety research. No one to protect the people who will stay in your hotels for decades to come. Julian stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Something raw and vulnerable. You don't know me, he said, but there was no anger in it. Only weariness. Maybe not, Nina agreed. But I know what it's like to carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. To build walls so high that even you can't see over them anymore. To forget what it feels like to let someone stand beside you. And what would you know about that? The question wasn't mocking. It was genuine. Nina took a breath. My father died when I was 16. House fire. Electrical malfunction. I was supposed to be home, but I stayed late at school working on an architecture project. My mother found him. She never forgave me for not being there. Said if I'd been home, I might have noticed the smell, called for help sooner. Her voice steadied. I spent years believing her. Believing I killed him by choosing my dreams over being home. It took a long time to realize that guilt was destroying me. That carrying it wasn't honoring him. It was just another way of dying. Julian's expression transformed. Recognition, understanding, connection. I'm sorry, he said quietly. So am I. Nina held his gaze. But we're still here. Still standing. And maybe that means something. The moment stretched. Rain continued its relentless percussion. Then Julian did something unexpected. He moved to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small box. Inside were dozens of sticky notes, all the ones Nina had left. Carefully preserved. I kept them, he said. Every single one. Because they reminded me that someone saw beyond the walls, beyond the control, beyond the man everyone thinks they know. Nina's breath caught. Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression darkening. There's a situation. The Singapore acquisition. The partner company just disclosed irregularities in their financial records. If this gets out before we can verify the scope, what do you need? Nina asked immediately. I need someone I can trust. His eyes met hers. Can you stay? Help me work through this tonight. Of course. They worked side by side through the night. Rain painted the windows. City lights glowed below. And slowly, carefully, something shifted between them. Not romance. Not yet. But the beginning of trust. The first crack in carefully constructed walls at 3 a.m, Nina looked up from spreadsheets to find Julian watching her. What? She asked. Thank you, he said simply. For staying. For seeing me, Nina smiled. Tomorrow is possibility, remember? Julian's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. Tomorrow is possibility. But neither of them knew that tomorrow would bring betrayal. The Singapore deal closed on a Friday. Julian stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, watching ferries cut white paths across gray water. Nina had never seen him look almost relaxed. We did it, she said from her desk. You did it, Julian corrected. Your analysis caught the discrepancies. Your solutions saved the acquisition. He turned to face her. I want you to come to the Singapore grand opening in March. Not as my assistant. As part of the executive team, Nina's heart stuttered. Julie and I, you've earned it. Something warmed in his eyes. More than earned it. Grace appeared in the doorway, expression troubled. Mr. Blackwood, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. She says she's family. Julian went perfectly still. Family. Her name is Vanessa Reed. The warmth drained from Julian's face, replaced by something cold and hard. Send her away. Julian, Nina said softly. Reed, is she related to Catherine's younger sister? His voice was ice. We haven't spoken in 10 years. Not since the funeral. Maybe she needs closure, Nina suggested. Maybe you both do. Julian's jaw tightened, but after a long moment he nodded. 5 minutes. Grace, show her in. Vanessa Reed walked in like she owned the room. Late 20s auburn hair like her sister's but sharper features. Designer clothes. Calculating green eyes that swept over Nina before fixing on Julian. Julian. Her voice dripped honey. It's been too long. What do you want, Vanessa? Julian's tone was flat. Can a girl visit her almost brother-in-law? She moved closer, deliberately invading his space. He stepped back. She smiled like she'd won something. I heard about your Singapore success. Impressive. Catherine would have been proud. Julian's hands clenched. Don't, what? Talk about my dead sister? The sister you were supposed to marry? The sister who died in your hotel? Vanessa's voice sharpened. Oh wait, we're not supposed to mention that, are we? We're supposed to pretend it never happened. Get out. Julian's voice was dangerous. I will. After you hear my proposal, Vanessa pulled a folder from her bag. I'm starting a foundation. Catherine read Memorial Foundation for Fire Safety. Very noble, don't you think? I need funding. 10 million should cover initial operations? Nina's stomach dropped. You're blackmailing him. Vanessa's eyes cut to her. I'm sorry, who are you? Nina Torres. Executive team member. Nina stood. And I know blackmail when I hear it. Blackmail. Vanessa laughed. I'm asking for a charitable donation. Unless Julian would prefer I go to the press with some interesting information I've recently acquired. What information? Julian's voice was deadly calm. Vanessa's smile widened. About the real reason Catherine was at that hotel. See, I've been doing some digging, talking to people who were there that night, and I discovered something fascinating. She paused for effect. Catherine wasn't there for the charity event. She was there meeting someone, a man. In his hotel room, the words detonated like bombs. Ah, you're lying, Julian said. Am I? Room 847. Registered to Marcus Chen. Your head of international development at the time. Interesting that you fired him 6 months after Catherine died, isn't it? The press would have a field day with this story. Grieving billionaire discovers dead fiancé was having an affair with his business partner. Very tragic. Very tabloid. Nina watched Julian's face. Watched every defense crumble. Watched pain rip through him like he was being torn apart from the inside. That's not possible, he whispered. 10 million, Vanessa repeated. And this information stays buried. Otherwise, Catherine's memory gets dragged through the mud. Your company's reputation takes a hit. And everyone knows the great Julian Blackwood couldn't even keep his fiancée faithful. You would destroy your sister's memory for money? Nina's voice shook with fury. Vanessa shrugged. Catherine's dead. Money spends. You have 48 hours to decide, Julian. Transfer the funds, or I go public. She walked out, heels clicking on marble. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Julian stood frozen at the windows. Nina could see his reflection in the glass, could see his expression shattering. Julian, she said gently. Don't. Oh, his voice was raw. Just don't. You don't know if it's true, don't I? He turned, and Nina had never seen anyone look so broken. Marcus resigned 6 months after the fire. Moved to Hong Kong. Wouldn't answer my calls. I thought it was grief. Guilt over the tragedy. His laugh was bitter. I never thought. Even if it's true, it doesn't change what you lost, doesn't it? Julian's voice rose. I spent 10 years mourning a woman who was cheating on me. 10 years building walls, refusing to let anyone close, thinking I was honoring her memory. And for what? She was with another man the night she died. You don't know that for certain. Vanessa could be lying to manipulate you. Why would she lie about something so easily verified? For exactly this reaction, Nina said. To hurt you. To make you doubt everything. To make you pay. Julian sank into his desk chair, head in his hands. I need to know the truth. Then we find it together. He looked up at her. Why would you help me with this? Because you're not alone anymore. Nina moved closer. Because walls only work if you're standing inside them by yourself. And because maybe, just maybe, Vanessa's lying. But we won't know unless we investigate. And if she's not lying, if Catherine really was, then you'll still deserve the truth. You'll still deserve to heal. You'll still deserve to move forward. Julian stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Marcus Chen. He's still in Hong Kong, running a boutique hotel chain. Then we call him tonight. He won't talk to me. Maybe not to you. Nina pulled out her phone. But he might talk to a journalist doing a piece on Catherine Reed's legacy. Especially if that journalist mentions Vanessa's foundation. Something sparked in Julian's eyes. Hope. Fragile, but real. You would do that? I would do anything to help you find the truth. Nina held his gaze. Because you deserve to know. Because you deserve to stop carrying guilt that isn't yours. And because... She stopped. The words hanging between them because... Julian's voice was soft. Because I care about you. More than I probably should. More than is smart or safe or professional. But I do. The admission hung in the air like a prayer. Julian stood slowly. Moved toward her. Stopped just outside his usual boundary. Close enough that Nina could see gold flecks in his gray eyes. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Nina, he said. If this is true, if Catherine really was with Marcus that night, then everything I believed about love, about loyalty, about trust, then we'll figure it out together. Nina didn't move closer. Didn't cross the line. One step at a time. Julian's hand lifted. Moved toward her face. Stopped inches away. His fingers trembled. Haven't touched anyone in 10 years, he whispered. I know. I don't know if I remember how. Then we'll learn. Together, his fingers brushed her. Cheek, featherlight, terrified. Nina held perfectly still. Barely breathing. Thank you, Julian said. For staying. For caring. For being brave enough to stand here when I can barely stand myself. Nina covered his hand with hers. Contact, connection, trust. We'll get through this, she promised. Whatever the truth is, we'll face it together. But neither of them knew that Marcus Chen's truth would destroy everything they were building. Marcus Chen answered on the third ring. Nina had called from a burner phone, claiming to be a freelance journalist writing about Catherine Reed's legacy for a human interest piece. Marcus had been hesitant at first, but when Nina mentioned Vanessa's foundation, something in his voice changed. Meet me in person, he said. Hong Kong. Tomorrow. I'll tell you everything, but not over the phone. Julian booked 2 tickets. First class, red-eye. They sat side by side in the darkened cabin as the plane cut through the night sky. Nina watched Julian stare out the window at stars scattered like broken glass across black velvet. Talk to me, she said softly. What if it's true? His reflection ghosted in the window. What if I spent 10 years mourning a lie? Then you'll finally be free to move forward, or I'll discover that everything I believed about love was a fantasy. He turned to her. That the only woman I ever loved was capable of betrayal? Nina reached across the armrest. Took his hand. He flinched slightly, then squeezed back. Hard. Desperate. Whatever we learn tomorrow, she said, it doesn't erase what you felt. It doesn't make your grief less real. It just means the story is more complicated than you thought. Nothing's ever simple, is it? No, but simple doesn't mean real. Complicated is real. Hong Kong glittered below them. A city of lights and shadows. They landed at dawn, took a car to the address Marcus had provided. A small boutique hotel in Wan Chai. Modern, elegant, nothing like Julian's grand empire. Marcus Chen waited in a private dining room. Older than Nina expected, maybe 50. Silver threading through black hair. Tired eyes that held regret like a weight. Julian. His voice cracked, seeing him. I didn't think you'd actually come. Nina made the call. But I needed answers. Julian's voice was steady. but Nina could see tension in every line of his body. Vanessa claims Catherine was with you the night of the fire. Is it true? Marcus closed his eyes. Yes. The word fell like an executioner's blade. But not the way Vanessa made it sound. Marcus continued quickly. Catherine wasn't having an affair with me. Then why was she in your room? Julian's voice was ice. Marcus stood, moved to the window overlooking the harbor. Because she was planning to leave you, Julian. And she needed my help. Silence. Brutal. Complete. What? Julian's voice was barely audible. Catherine loved you, Marcus said. But she couldn't breathe in your world. The galas, the business dinners, the constant scrutiny. She was an artist, Julian. A free spirit. Your life was suffocating her. She never said anything, Julian whispered, because she didn't want to hurt you. She tried. God, she tried to fit into your world. But the wedding planning pushed her to breaking point. All the perfection, the control, the schedules. She felt like she was disappearing. Marcus turned back to face them. That night in Bangkok, she came to my room because I was her friend first. Before you hired me, before any of this, she needed someone to talk to. Someone who wouldn't judge her for wanting something different. So she was planning to call off the wedding? Nina asked gently. Yes. She was going to tell you when you both returned to Seattle. She wanted to do it in person with kindness. She loved you enough to want to set you free to find someone who could love your world the way she couldn't. Julian's face had gone white. The fire. She stayed late at the event because she was avoiding going back to her room. Avoiding thinking about the conversation she'd have to have with you. When the fire started, she was on the 3rd floor. The smoke inhalation. Marcus's voice broke. She never made it out. And you said nothing. Julian's voice was raw. For 10 years, you let me believe we were perfect. That we were happy. That her death was some random tragedy instead of what it really was. What it really was? Marcus challenged. Julian, she died. Horribly. Painfully. What purpose would it have served to tell you she was planning to leave? You were already destroying yourself with guilt? I thought keeping silent was kinder. Julian's control finally shattered. You let me build my entire life around a ghost. Around a memory of something that wasn't even real? Around guilt for not being there to save a relationship that was already ending? The relationship was ending, but her love for you wasn't, Marcus insisted. Catherine cared about you deeply. She just couldn't be who you needed her to be. Julian stood abruptly, chair scraping against floor. I need air. He walked out. Nina moved to follow, but Marcus caught her arm. Wait, there's more you need to know. What more could there possibly be? Marcus pulled out his phone, brought up a video file. Catherine recorded this the night before she died. She asked me to keep it. To only share it if someone ever questioned. Her feelings for Julian. He pressed play. Catherine's face filled the screen. Young, beautiful, sad, sitting in a hotel room with Bangkok city lights. Glowing behind her. If you're watching this, something has happened to me, Catherine's voice said. And I need Julian to know the truth. I'm leaving him. Not because I don't love him, but because I love him too much to keep pretending I can be the partner he needs. Julian deserves someone who loves his world, who thrives in the structure and perfection he creates. Someone who can stand beside him in his glass tower and feel at home. Tears slipped down Catherine's recorded face. I'm not that person. I tried. God, I tried so hard. But every day, I felt myself disappearing, becoming smaller, less myself. And I realized that's not love. That's sacrifice without joy. That's slow death. She wiped her eyes. Julian, if you're watching this, please understand. You are extraordinary. You are brilliant and good and deserving of all the love in the world. Just not my love. Not like this. I hope someday you find someone who fits into your world perfectly, who sees your control as protection, not a cage, who loves you not despite your walls, but because she understands why you built them. The video ended. Nina's chest felt crushed. Did Julian ever see this? No. I could never bring myself to show him. But maybe now. Marcus looked toward the door. Maybe now he needs to see it. To understand that Catherine's leaving wasn't a rejection. It was an act of love. Setting him free to find something real. Nina took the phone. May I? That's why I kept it. She found Julian on the hotel's rooftop terrace. Hong Kong sprawled below, a city waking up. He stood at the railing, hands gripping the metal like it was the only thing holding him together. She was going to leave me, he said without turning. All this time I thought we were happy, that we were building something, and she was planning her escape. Julian. Nina moved beside him. She loved you. In her own way, she loved you very much, just not enough to stay. Love isn't measured in staying or leaving. It's measured in honesty, in courage, in wanting the best for each other, even when it hurts. How can you say that? He turned to her, eyes burning. She was going to walk away. Just like everyone eventually walks away. I'm not walking away, Nina said firmly. You don't understand what you're promising. Don't I? Nina's voice rose. You think I don't know what I'm getting into? You think I don't see your walls, your control, your fear? I see all of it, Julian. Every broken piece. And I'm still standing here. Why? The question was torn from him. Why would you choose this? Choose me? Because I see who you are beneath the walls. Because your brokenness doesn't scare me. It makes you real. Because I've spent my whole life feeling like I had to be perfect to deserve love. And with you, I don't have to pretend anymore. Nina pulled out Marcus's phone. Catherine left you something? A message. I think you need to see it. She played the video. Watched Julian's face as Catherine spoke. Watched understanding dawn. Watched pain transform into something else. Something like release when it ended. Julian was crying. Silent tears tracking down his face. She tried to love me, he whispered. She really tried. She did. But some kinds of love aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to teach us what we need, what we're looking for. And what am I looking for? He turned to Nina. Someone who sees your walls and doesn't ask you to tear them down. Someone who sits beside you while you decide brick by brick if you're ready to let them fall. Someone who understands that healing isn't linear, that some days you'll be open and some days you'll retreat, and both are okay. Julian reached for her. This time, he didn't stop. His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was crying. I don't know how to do this, he said. How to let someone in, how to trust again. Neither do I, but maybe we can figure it out together. He kissed her, soft and scared and desperate. 10 years of isolation breaking in that single moment of connection. Nina kissed him back, hands fisting in his shirt, anchoring them both. When they pulled apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. If I do this, if I let you in, I need you to promise me something, anything. Promise that if I become too much, if my walls become a cage, you'll tell me. You won't just disappear, you'll fight for us. Promise, Nina whispered. But Julian, you need to promise me something too. What? Promise that you'll fight for us too. That you won't let fear make your decisions. You'll trust me enough to be honest, even when it's hard. I promise. They stood on that rooftop as Hong Kong woke beneath them. Two broken people, choosing to be broken together. Choosing to heal together, choosing love despite all the reasons not to, but neither of them knew that Vanessa Reed wasn't finished destroying them. They returned to Seattle with Catherine's video and Marcus's testimony. Julian's lawyers drafted a response to Vanessa's blackmail, but when they tried to contact her, she'd vanished. 3 days later, the story broke. Not the affair story Vanessa had threatened. Something worse. Much worse. Nina sat in Julian's office watching news coverage on every screen. Her stomach turned to ice. Billionaire Julian Blackwood under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. The headlines screamed across every major outlet. What the hell is this? Julian's voice was deadly calm. The calm before the storm. Grace rushed in, face pale. Anonymous tips were sent to federal investigators. Financial records showing irregularities in your personal accounts. Transactions that look like money laundering. Offshore accounts in your name that you never opened. It's impossible, Nina said. Julian's finances are transparent. We've been through every record. Not these records. Grace handed over a tablet. These are fabrications. Very good fabrications. But fabricated nonetheless. Julian scrolled through the documents. Nina watched rage and recognition war across his face. Vanessa, he said. She had Catherine's access codes. Catherine handled some of my personal finances before she died. These documents are using information only Catherine would have known. She's framing you, Nina breathed. When blackmail didn't work, she's destroying you another way. It's working. Julian's phone began buzzing. Board members are calling emergency meetings. Investors are panicking. The stock price is plummeting. Nina's phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Miss Torres. Vanessa's voice dripped poison. I hope you're enjoying the show. What do you want? Nina's voice was steel. What I've always wanted. $10 million? But now the price has gone up. $25 million. Transferred within the next hour, or more evidence gets released. Evidence that will put Julian in prison? You're bluffing, am I? Check his personal server. The one in his home office. I had someone plant very incriminating files there last night. Files that show years of financial crimes. When the FBI arrives with their warrant, and they will arrive, they're going to find exactly what I want them to find. Nina's blood ran cold. Julian never hurt you. Catherine never hurt you. Why are you doing this? Because Julian gets to move on. Vanessa's voice turned vicious. He gets to heal. He gets to fall in love again. He gets to be happy. While my sister is dead. While I spent 10 years watching him play the grieving widower, building his empire on her memory. Using her death as some tragic backstory that makes him interesting. This isn't about Catherine at all, Nina realized. This is about you, about jealousy. 25 million. 1 hour, where Julian Blackwood loses everything. Hey, the call ended. Nina looked at Julian. Now, get somewhere safe while we figure this out. Running makes me look guilty. Staying gets you arrested on false charges. Nina grabbed her bag. Grace called Julian's lawyers. Tell them everything. Julian, we're going to my apartment. It's not in your name, not connected to you in any way. We'll regroup there, Nina. I can't ask you to harbor a fugitive. You're not a fugitive. You're being framed. There's a difference. She took his hand. Trust me, please. Julian looked at Grace. The older woman nodded. Go. I'll handle things here. Buy you time to prove your innocence. They took Nina's car, an old Honda that rattled and wheezed but was invisible. Anonymous. They drove through Seattle's streets as news helicopters circled Blackwood Enterprises. Nina's apartment was small. A studio in Fremont, nothing like Julian's penthouse. She unlocked the door, ushered him inside. It's not much, she said. It's perfect. Awion moved to the window, looking out at a view of ordinary buildings and ordinary streets. Thank you. For this, for everything, we're going to fix this. Nina pulled out her laptop. Vanessa made a mistake. She planted false evidence on your home server. That means she or someone she hired had physical access to your house? We find proof of that. We prove the evidence was planted. My home security system. Julian pulled out his phone. Logs every entry, even mine. They worked through the afternoon, found the breach. A maintenance worker who'd entered Julian's house the previous night. A worker who didn't exist in any of Julian's service contracts. We have him, Nina said. We have proof someone broke in. Julian's phone rang. His lawyer. Julian, the FBI is at your office with a warrant. They're seizing records. They want you to turn yourself in for questioning. Tell them I'll surrender tomorrow morning. I need tonight to prepare my defense. That's not how this works. Make it work, please. He ended the call, looked at Nina. I have 12 hours before I have to turn myself in. 12 hours to prove my innocence, or lose everything I've built. Then we use them. Nina stood. We have the security footage. We have Marcus's testimony about Vanessa's character. We have proof she tried to blackmail you. We build a case. They worked through the evening, through midnight. Through the dark hours before dawn. Building evidence. Connecting dots. It's creating a narrative of innocence versus conspiracy. At 5 a.m., Nina made coffee. Found Julian standing at her window, watching the sky lighten. This is what normal looks like, he said softly. Small apartment. Simple view. Real life. Do you hate it? No? He turned to her. I think I've been living in a glass tower for so long, I forgot what the ground feels like. Nina moved beside him. Julian, whatever happens today, whatever the FBI says, whatever Vanessa does, I want you to know something. What? I love you. Not your money. Not your empire. Not the image you show the world. I love the man who leaves sticky notes on his desk, who works until midnight to make sure buildings are safe, who spent 10 years punishing himself for a tragedy that wasn't his fault. I love your broken pieces and your careful walls and your slow, scared journey toward healing. Julian's eyes glistened. I love you too. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night we worked together. Maybe when you held my hand on the plane to Hong Kong. Maybe it's been building since the day you left that first note on my desk. But I love you, Nina Torres. And I'm terrified of losing you. You won't lose me. If I go to prison, you won't. We have evidence. We have truth. Truth wins. It has to. Julian pulled her close, held her like she was the only solid thing in a world spinning out of control. If it doesn't, he whispered against her hair, if somehow Vanessa wins, I need you to promise me something. Oh, don't talk like that. Promise me you'll move on. You'll find someone who can give you a normal life. Someone who isn't drowning in scandal and broken past. Someone who deserves you. Nina pulled back, looking him in the eye. Stop. You deserve me. You deserve happiness. You deserve love. And I'm not going anywhere, Nina. No. Listen to me. I spent my whole life believing I had to earn love through perfection. Through achievement. Through being valuable enough that people wouldn't leave. And then I met you. And you showed me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. About being broken and scared and human. And choosing each other anyway. Tears slipped down her cheeks. So no, I won't move on. I won't find someone else. I'll fight for you. I'll wait for you. I'll stand beside you through every legal battle, every scandal, every dark moment. Because that's what love is. It's not pretty or perfect. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it hurts. But it's real. And it's ours. Julian kissed her, deep and desperate and filled with every emotion he'd locked away for 10 years. When they pulled apart, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. We should go, Nina said. The FBI will be waiting. They drove to the federal building in silence. News vans already lined the street. Reporters pressed against barricades. Julian's lawyers waited at the entrance. Before Julian got out of the car, Nina grabbed his hand. Remember, she said, truth wins, always, he repeated. The next hours blurred together. FBI interviews. Lawyers presenting evidence. Security footage showing the break-in. Marcus flying in from Hong Kong with testimony about Vanessa's blackmail attempt. Financial experts demonstrating how the fraudulent documents had been created, and then the break they needed. A FBI cyber forensics expert traced the fake documents to an IP address. An address registered to a coffee shop in Portland. Security footage from that coffee shop showed Vanessa Reed sitting at a laptop. Creating the evidence she'd planted, the case collapsed. Not against Julian. Against Vanessa, she was arrested 3 hours later at SeaTac Airport, attempting to flee to Brazil with $23 million she'd embezzled from Catherine's estate over the last decade. Julian stood in the federal building's lobby as news of Vanessa's arrest spread. Nina beside him. Grace and his lawyers surrounding him. It's over, his lead lawyer said. All charges dropped. Your reputation will recover. The stock will stabilize. You're free. Free. The word felt strange in Julian's mouth. Outside, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The world wanted a statement. Wanted him to be the victim, the hero, the comeback story. But Julian only wanted one thing. He turned to Nina. Come with me, he said. Where? Anywhere, everywhere. Let's take a month. No phones, no business. No glass towers. Let's find the ground together. Nina smiled through happy tears. Yes, they walked out of the federal building hand in hand. facing cameras and questions and chaos, together, 3 months later. They stood on a beach in Bali, the same beach where Julian and Catherine had taken their photograph. But this time, Julian wasn't haunted by ghosts. He was living. Really living. Do you ever regret it? Nina asked, toes in the sand. Letting me in? Opening yourself up to all of this. Julian pulled her close, watching the sunset paint the sky. Every wall I built kept me safe. But safe isn't the same as alive. You taught me that. You taught me that risk is the price of connection. That fear is just love without trust. That healing happens in the spaces between people brave enough to be broken together. That's very poetic for a billionaire businessman. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised them both. I'm working on my emotional availability, he said. My therapist says I'm making progress. You are, Nina agreed. Slow progress. Scared progress? But progress. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Nina Torres, Julian said softly. Will you marry me? Nina turned, found him on one knee in the sand. A simple ring in his hand. Nothing flashy. Just a single diamond catching the golden light. I don't have a speech prepared, he continued. I don't have a plan. I just know that whatever future exists for me, I want you in it. Every messy, complicated, beautiful moment. Will you take that risk with me? Nina dropped to her knees in the sand, cupped his face in her hands, kissed him softly. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes to all of it. The mess. The complications. The beauty. The slow, careful healing, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. They stayed there in the sand as the sun disappeared and stars emerged. To people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfection, it was about showing up, about staying, about choosing each other in the 1,000 small moments that built a life. Julian Blackwood had spent 10 years building walls, learning control, keeping the world at a safe distance. But Nina Torres had taught him something more important, that the greatest courage isn't in building walls. It's in allowing them to fall, in trusting someone enough to catch you when you do. The ocean whispered against the shore. The night air smelled of salt and possibility. And two broken people, healing together, chose love. The end.